Hi everyone, Jessica here and thank you so much for watching this video. So today I'm going to be creating the full front bouncy card. So in a previous video I showed you a curved version. This is a Mother's Day card that I made for my mum. So I created this using that full bouncy front to it, and it's got a lot of dimension. So I've already done pretty much most of the prep work because I really wanted it to be about that rather than kind of watching me stamp and colour and things. The stamp set here was, I think it was from a Simply Cards and Papercraft issue. I believe it was called Beautiful Bouquets. Came with a stencil for a mason jar as well. And I've stamped and coloured that with some Copic markers along with that bow. We've got a 5x7 card here, and I've cut a matte and layer from yellow cardstock using the Creative Craft products. This is the filigree rectangle nesting dies. And then I've got a piece of white cardstock that's going to fit in that centre square of the yellow mat. And I'm just going to score some lines on here to create a really simple background. So I've just put it in, I've kind of lined up my top two corners so I can make sure I'm kind of keeping it in the same place. And I'm literally just scoring, I believe this is 1/4 inches, I think it was. And this is a really great and easy way of creating a simple background. If you want something just to add a little bit of something to that background, and you don't want to maybe get out an embossing folder or, you know, stamp anything, then you can create some really interesting backgrounds and patterns and things with just a score tool like you can see here. So again, in a previous video, I showed you that kind of curved version. We made a square birthday card, and that the way that we created the like hinges, the spring mechanisms, it didn't do 100% what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to be a full bounce, but it ended up being a really beautiful curve just from the way that I made those springs. But for this card, like I said, I wanted to have that vase and those flowers really come forward quite a bit. And so we created that kind of full spring for this. So I'm actually going to use the debossed side rather than the embossed side. So I'm adding glue to the side that I did all of my scoring on. Again, just to make that background stand out a little bit more. And again, it makes a really, really great simple background. So I've glued that flat. I'm not adding any extra dimension because this is, going to have tons and tons of dimension on it. So now for the important hinges. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces of cardstock. I'm using a 300 GSM. You can use something slightly thinner. I don't think it needs to be this thick really. And I'm trimming this to, I believe it was 4 inches long by 1.5 inch, but that will depend on whatever it is that you are springing forward, whether it's a border or like a main piece like I'm doing. That will very much be determined by that. So I'm going to put this into my scoreboard, and I'm going to score mine at 1/2 inches. So I do 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and then 1.5 inch, and then just rotate it, and I'm going to do the same 3 score lines again. If you don't want it to spring forward, you can adjust this. You can have a go at trying to create smaller or bigger springs if you want to. You're going to have a middle section, and then we're just going to fold, I think it's a mountain, valley, then mountain on each side. And yeah, this is going to be our real basic spring. So it's really, really easy to do, but I think it's super effective. So you're going to have something that's going to look a little bit like this. So I'm going to score the second one here as well. So again, at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and 1.5. And again, like I said, just experiment with making these bigger or smaller, depending on what you want to jump out. Maybe if you've got a few things that you like, 2 or 3 things that you want to jump out, you could make one have a bigger spring forward than the other ones, just to add maybe a little bit of dimension. So again, you can experiment with this and try to create lots of different effects. Maybe if you want the bottom to spring out, maybe further than the top of something, again, that's something that you can do. So again, because this is a 300 GSM, it's a really, really sturdy cardstock. So I'm just going to use my bone folder just to flatten these. So what I'm going to do as well in a moment, because I don't want to risk either of my front pieces to kind of stick together or anything like that, I'm going to trim just a little bit off one, which you'll see in a second. This is, because I don't want it to stick together. When I put the glue down, I'm going to kind of glue it flat and let that spring forward. I don't want those bits to get stuck together and then to not be able to have this work. So you can make this middle bit if you want to make it slightly over 4 inches and still do that same 1/2 inch score line. You can do that. That will just make that back wider piece slightly wider, so the pieces don't kind of cross together. So I'm going to pop a little bit of glue just on those front pieces, and you can see how this is going to start to spring forward. So I'm doing one at the top or one at the bottom. If again you're doing something slightly bigger, maybe you might need 3 of these, you might need multiples, but for this 2 is going to work perfectly fine. So I've just glued those pieces. You can see how it's going to look there. We're going to add some glue to the back of this, and then we can add this to our card. I'm going to pop this in an envelope at the moment. What I could have done was just bring this down ever so slightly, so that vase was slightly, you know, further to the bottom, but you can see how that's going to spring forward really nicely. And again, just that really simple background that we've got. We don't need anything to kind of take away from this big, lovely set of flowers and vase here. Perfect for Mother's Day, I think. I was going to make an Easter version. I'm still going to do that because I want to show you how to create a really easy Easter egg using just some nesting dies, but I'm going to show you how this is going to go into an envelope. So 5x7 envelope. You can see that my flowers are hanging off the top slightly. That's what I'm struggling with here to get the card in the envelope. It's not through the mechanism itself. I probably should have put it in the other way to stop everything getting all the little pieces getting stuck on the envelope itself, but the actual mechanism and everything and fitting this into a card, this will lie flat. It has that small amount of dimension that you'd get if you had you know, added foam and just general dimension to your card anyway. But in terms of, you know, fitting it in an envelope, a standard envelope, getting this through the post, a standard postage is absolutely going to work. You can see you've got very little bulk on here, and then pulling it out again. Very easy. I did just sort of hold it down a little bit. That's something that's probably a good idea, but you can see then it just springs forward really nicely. To finish this, I'm just going to add Mum to the front of this. I'm going to cut this from some sort of orangey coral cardstock here, and this is just my Bold and Beautiful alphabet set from Hunky Dory. And yeah, we're just going to spell Mum and put that across the front. So I absolutely love this kind of spring forward look. You can see all of that shadow as well behind to really see how far sprung forward that is. Again, like I've already said, you can play with making adjustments to how far it springs forward. If you want it further, you can just do a longer piece and have sort of more of that spring. You could just adjust it in so many different ways to just for different products, but projects. But the fact that this fits into a standard size envelope with very little bulk, I think is really great. Much better. This is what I wanted from that first video where we had that curve. I absolutely love that curve, and the fact that that went flat into an envelope as well, I thought was really lovely. But I absolutely love this, just that dimension. If you want to create a card that's got something a little bit special to it, you know, maybe it is a statement card, a showstopper card, but you know, you don't want a big card, you don't want all this extra bulk and things like that. A card like this, you know, if you had a big 60, for example, so you did big numbers and had that, you know, jumping forward at you, I think it would work perfectly. So that's going to be it for this video. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing the curved version and then this full sprung forward version as well. Unfortunately, I did the video and then obviously I gave the card to my mum, so I didn't actually take any proper photos of this card, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully you can see all of that dimension in here. Like I said, I absolutely love how this turned out. So that's going to be it for this video. So thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.